Well, hello everyone. We are live streaming this event, so we're going to start now. Thank you, our attendees, for coming, and thank you, Digital Hollywood, for setting up this wonderful panel. I'm Susan Hamer. I'm with 360 Degree Communications, and we represent a lot of films about food and the environment. One of the films we worked on this year was called The Biggest Little Farm, which is now being nominated for all kinds of awards, and it's a wonderful film, inspiring, hopeful, about a couple who decides to start their own farm from a patch of dirt, the Santa Monica local couple. And we're working on a really cool film right now, and I hope I can show you the trailer if we can get that hooked up. It's called Fantastic Fungi, and it's all about the mycelium network underground, the mushrooms we eat, the mushrooms, what they do for the environment, for soil remediation. And actually, we're having a really special screening in Santa Barbara on Sunday the 24th, where Louis Schwartzberg, the director, will be there. We're having a great panel of people from Patagonia and foragers, and a post-panel reception at a great restaurant with mushrooms, and all the foragers will be there, not even expensive. So if you're in Santa Barbara on Sunday the 24th at around 4 o'clock, it's at the Marjorie Luke Theater. All right, so that's what I do. I've been involved in the food movement for quite a while, putting on the Good Food Festival and Conference, working with the farmers markets, and I really love this panel here today because everybody is so dedicated and committed. And we're going to start with Mel Nicola, who I've known for quite a while. She's a visionary restaurateur who is now inspiring underserved youth to live a healthy lifestyle. Mel believes that wisdom and guidance combined with opportunity will lift youth up out of poverty and into a life of prosperity and balance. And then we have Sabrina Williams. She's the CEO of Seed. Sabrina has worked with groups across the United States as a community organizer and organizational development specialist. In 2000, she founded the nonprofit Home and Community, Inc. to guide emerging groups in 40 states through the business formation process via its Seed project, which addresses food security in low-income, transitional, and homeless populations. Welcome. Andrew Bloom is the co-founder of In-House Produce. Andrew has had a lifelong interest in where food comes from, and he conducts ag tech practice In-House Produce, and it's an indoor ag tech company focused on reimagining the farm-to-table experience. He is an Al Gore-trained climate speaker who is hungry to continue learning and best position himself to foster green jobs, healthy food, local food, sustainable best practices, and resilient cities. And Elizabeth Bowman, I know her well. She's the director of the Farmers Market Operations at Sustainable Economic Enterprises of LA, which is CLA. And she formerly managed the Hollywood Farmers Market, where we did a great event with Chipotle one day. It was really fantastic. And she is a dedicated, now she manages all the CLA Farmers Market in Los Angeles, and she'll have a lot to tell us about that. And Mark Anderson is Farmer Mark, and he operates 5 farmers markets throughout Los Angeles and Orange County. And he served on the California Certified Farmers Market Advisory Committee, advising the Secretary of Agriculture. So unfortunately, Nicole Landers pulled her back and cannot be there, and she sends her deep regrets. So let's start this panel. Melissa, tell us a little more about your organization and cake.
So we're located in South Central LA. We're in a high school, currently in a high school, and we like to look at life from lots of different angles. We teach our kids how to grow their own food hydroponically, and then they develop a fresh, healthy recipe, which they're going to actually take to market at the end of the semester and hold on to the profits as a scholarship. And they study interpersonal communication and front-of-the-house skills, and they also learn health, wellness, nutrition, mindful meditation, stress management, and yoga. And we're looking at the body as a whole, mind, body, and soul, to try and get them prepared for entering the workforce or higher learning.
Great, thank you so much. And pull your microphones closer, just so we can get the audio. I'll make sure everybody can hear. Sabrina, so tell us a little bit more about your organization and what you do.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me today. Again, my name is Sabrina Williams, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of SEED, which is Sustainable Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Development Company. And as Susan mentioned, it was formed out of a nonprofit. It's now a for-profit company, and we're basically bringing IoT solutions to home agriculture. So our little kit is a microcontrolled system that allows people to monitor their plants from anywhere in the world. And working from a one-for-one model, for each kit sold, one is provided to a farmer or a low-income grower. Essentially, what we're trying to do is address the global warming and climate change issue and help people play a role in reducing the impacts that we as humans are making on the country, the world, and provide more food while we're at it.
Thank you. Great. And Andrew, tell us more about In-House.
Yeah, thanks. First, I just want to say I saw Biggest Little Farm like 2 weeks ago, and it was my favorite movie I've seen in years. It was just super enchanting, such an awesome story, and just really inspiring stuff. So thanks for that.
Welcome.
Yeah, so at In-House Produce, we grow food right where it gets served, right in the dining area of restaurants and other food service establishments. We do it through hydroponics, like cake. But it's designed to really look good. Right now, we're doing it for a few celebrity chefs. We're about to be in our first Hilton hotel, as well as some diners. Next, we're going to be doing some corporate offices, corporate campuses, and universities, some other awesome clients. So I'll talk about it some more, about how we do that as the panel goes on. But in the meantime, you can check out our Instagram. It's just at In-House Produce to kind of visualize the hydroponic microfarms that we build.
Thank you. Elizabeth, tell us more about what you do.
Sure, yeah. CLA is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our primary work is operating 6 farmers markets in South LA, with Hollywood being our flagship market. We also operate the Outwater Village and Echo Park farmers markets, and then we have 3 markets in South LA. We operate 3 out of the 6 or 7 farmers markets in South LA, which are the Central Avenue Farmers Market, at the Constituent Center on Central Avenue and 43rd. We have the Crenshaw Farmers Market at the Baldwin Hills Plaza. And then we have a farmers market at the MLK Outpatient Center in Willowbrook. We also offer nutrition education programming at our markets through the Champions for Change program that's funded by LA County. And we also form a lot of partnerships with chefs and independent educators to have ongoing programming at our markets whenever possible. And then each of our markets, we were sort of at the forefront of farmers markets accepting EBT and offering Market Match, which is a dollar-for-dollar match for folks who receive EBT benefits to spend on fresh fruits and vegetables at the market. So that takes place at all of our markets.
My local market, the Hollywood Farmers Market. Love it. Yes, and Farmer Mark, tell us more about you.
Yes, Mark Anderson, CEO and founder of Farmer Mark, former investment banker that took a wrong turn, though I like to view it as a right turn, and ended up becoming a farmer. So was farming on a small-scale farm up in Ventura County for about 6 years, and just kind of got to live the life of a farmer and realize how difficult of a life that can be to kind of keep a farm in business and sustainable, and kind of through that was also selling at farmers markets and kind of learned the huge importance that those play in the local food system, especially to keep kind of these small farmers afloat. And then kind of over the course of a couple of years, just kind of realized that my skills were better suited to be an operator of a farmer's market as opposed to an actual farmer. And so my goal is to support kind of small farmers in the best possible way by running markets that kind of cater directly kind of for the farmer and can bring them to you, the consumer, so that they can get kind of the largest dollar for their hard-earned work.
Where are your markets?
Yeah, I have 3 markets located in Los Angeles County. That's Playa Vista, Hermosa Beach, and Westwood Village. And then 2 markets in Orange County and Costa Mesa and Newport Beach.
Fabulous. Well, I guess what's on everybody's mind, I know on the panel's mind, on my mind, and probably everybody in the audience, is the climate change and global warming. And are we doing enough as sustainable people in the food movement? What are we doing? What are you each individually doing to teach you, so your constituents, and action steps, and what's the plan? What are we doing? Start with Melissa.
Awesome. Well, what we're doing with cake, actually, it's interesting, this was brought up by the panel, but we're trying to teach them how can they reuse all of the products that they've started with in their ingredients. What's the next purpose we can take it to? So we just created, from our plastic bottles, we cut them in half, we flipped over the top, we made little holes, and now we're growing some additional herbs from our recycled bottles. So this is something all the students are going to be able to take home with them. There's like a little straw cut out on the side so they can start to grow at home, which is, another way of our students who have really no access to any fresh food, a way for them to grow and recycle at the same time. So what we're doing with our program is one aspect. And what I'd like to see with perhaps, larger scale corporations and government is hit the climate change from 2 areas, not just one. I mean, if we have, a setup with the climate change affecting our food, what should we do about it? And we have a homeless issue, what can we do about it? Maybe we can merge the 2, and we can take over abandoned buildings, grow hydroponically, and put people who perhaps were out of work and out of home to work in those buildings, using it as residential housing and commercial use. So trying to look at, maybe a trifecta or, a two-way approach, but not just singularly. So that's what I'd like to see happening in the future. So we don't have to deal with this, and we have a world that we can preserve for our youth.
Great. Love that. Sabina?
Yeah, and so what we're looking at is it from the soil, the aspect of soil, and how do we create healthy soils? Because 70% of the world is fed right now on really not healthy soils worldwide. And we have a lot of small and subsistence farmers, and these are the folks that we want to be able to provide better watering practices and also soil monitoring so that they can make sure the health of their soils is where it needs to be. So for us, we're looking at a way to sequester the carbon and create this place where these smallholder farms and low-income farmers that are feeding the majority of people in the world can produce more on the small spaces that they have. So for us, we're definitely focused on the health of the soil and monitoring, having an ability to monitor through a very small system efficiently and cheaply.
Is that in Los Angeles, or is it all more than that?
Well, we're based out of Los Angeles, but we have partnerships that we've developed in Cuba, Mexico, and Congo. So that's where we're starting, and we'd like to be able to go out from that. But again, looking at how they're growing, where they're growing right now. And also, maybe we do our little part to make sure that we're addressing some of the greenhouse gas and impacting climate change in a positive way.
Great.
So I think everybody on this panel knows that food is very vulnerable to special interests, vulnerable to short-sighted decision-making that maybe is not so good for the soil. It's also vulnerable now to climate risk, and definitely was a big motivator for me to get into indoor farming. I've been designing indoor vertical farms and greenhouses for 5 years now. But what specifically motivated me from going from my consulting practice previously, where I had consulted for some of the largest utility companies in the country, for Coca-Cola and for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital and for some of the major mayor's offices in the city, in this country. Through that consulting practice, I learned a lot about how vertical farming is not necessarily a silver bullet. It's not a perfect solution, and through all that design work as well. And so when I really looked at the economic models as well as the technology that was available, I realized a big opportunity to create a lot of efficiency gains, and that opportunity was to grow right on site. Because if you imagine growing food at a farm, what happens is that food gets harvested and put into the cold storage refrigerated shipping chain. And that supply chain includes a refrigerated truck to a refrigerated processing center to another refrigerated truck to a refrigerated distribution center to another refrigerated truck. I'm getting exhausted just saying it. But ultimately to a commercial refrigerator where that food gets served. And the crazy part about that is that all fruits and vegetables are between 90 and 95% water. So we've built this entire supply chain essentially to deliver vitamin water to our plates. And for me, that's very inefficient because there's fresh water available in cities and in buildings everywhere. And so for us at In-House Produce, it was important to not measure food in miles, not have to deal with the last mile of distribution, which, by the way, is where 28% of the cost in that whole crazy supply chain exists, and instead measure food in feet, right, where we're just growing it right where it's served in a way that people can see it, that indicates a lot of transparency. You can see exactly the practices that I'm using to grow your food, so you know that I'm not, spraying it with harmful chemicals or anything like that. And it's much more sustainable. We recirculate the water. We don't use pesticides. Our runoff is extremely limited, as is, the food waste is essentially zero because it's not going through a supply chain and the chef only harvests it when it's ready to be used. And so, what I've really learned is that technology is not necessarily the answer. The answer is to do it locally and have people power. And, one of the most rewarding things for me has been imparting what I've learned over the last 5 years in terms of bringing all of the mechanical and structural and electrical and software engineering into a system that is essentially bioengineering to make it work. And that's been an ongoing journey for me, and one where I would like to definitely start to educate others and hopefully have a business model that works and inspires people to that they can do this work, and something where you don't necessarily need to be studied in all those disciplines that I just mentioned and still be able to do your part to grow food for you, your community, whoever that may be.
I love that. But let me ask you the question that people sometimes think about growing hydroponically. Can you address the nutrition factor of the soil versus non-soil?
Yeah, sure. That's a really great question. So hydroponics essentially means soilless growing. And for some people, I myself I love soil. I think it's great. Like, soil is a great thing. Like, what Sabrina's doing is super important. And hydroponics is just another method to do it. But with hydroponics, we do use synthetic nutrients that basically come, that's a blend of NPK, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And those nutrients are useful for the plants, but they are taken from, mined from other parts of the world. Mainly, the main mines are in Morocco, Chile, and China. So we use them in very small quantities. One jar could last one of my farms an entire year or more. So we're not talking about shipping that much, and what we are shipping is a shelf-stable nutrient. And then in terms of nutritional quality, what we've seen is that it's comparable in terms of minerals and even in terms of secondary metabolites like luteins, isothionates, beta-carotenes, all of those secondary metabolites that are anti-aging, anti-cancer, have all antioxidants, all those good properties. But what we found is really where the nutrition starts to decay is in that cold storage supply chain, right? Because when you've harvested that plant and shipped it over in refrigerated shipping, that is now a decaying piece of produce. And the produce that we grow, microgreens, they typically decay in 5 to 8 days where they're no longer edible. And as they traveled over in that supply chain, they don't arrive at our chefs until 3 or 4 days into the supply chain, so they don't last very long. And even when they get there, they're an inferior product versus what was grown locally, whether that was in the soil or hydroponically.
Thank you very much. Great answer. Elizabeth,
Yeah.
global warming in Hollywood.
Global warming in Hollywood, it's a problem. I think, to Andrew's point, the farmers market is really there to cut out that distribution system, and it allows farmers to sell directly to the consumers. And one of the secondary benefits of that is the consumer can speak directly to their farmer, ask probing questions about their growing practices, their soil management practices, their pest management practices, and eliminates, I think, 3 or 4 steps in that supply chain. So, I mean, if you can't grow locally, and if you can't grow your own, farmers markets are sort of that intermediary. It's arguably a better carbon footprint than the sort of like food distribution system, although there's definitely some pros and cons. CLA, we're starting to think about what our role is in terms of facilitating, being like sort of a resource facilitator for our farmers and for our food vendors in terms of education around soil capturing carbon through soil management practices, regenerative farming, that sort of thing, facilitating, like grants to get to upgrade their vehicle technology and equipment to get them running on hybrid or electric cars. So we're starting to think about what our role is in sort of like climate change and some of the challenges that our farmers and food producers are facing in that realm. From a resource perspective, farmers markets are like an inherently to-go environment. So there's a lot of, we're realizing that we have to sort of insert ourselves between our farmers and our customers in terms of education around like bring your own reusable, refillable, whatever it is, container bag, produce bag, and we're in the process of doing waste assessments, especially at our Hollywood Farmers Market, to determine, what our waste looks like and how we can better redistribute our waste, be it recycling, composting, and hopefully eliminating what goes to the landfill from our farmers markets. But that's, we have 150 farmers in our network, 150 food vendors in our network, and then I think tens of thousands of customers. So that process change is going to be slower than we would like, but we definitely have an end goal of making our markets a zero waste
That's great
environment.
news. Maybe you should consider making some reusable bags that brand the market that we could buy when we go there.
Yes, that's a people power. That's a
Single-use
people power
plastic
thing.
is
Getting
just
some
forget.
volunteers. We have I've been hoarding old T-shirts to turn into
Maybe
produce bags.
their kids can do it.
Done.
Put them together.
Let's do it.
Farmer Mark can
I'm
help.
in, Mel.
What is your approach to global warming? And how do you two farmers market people feel about groups like, or companies like Imperfect Produce and others that deliver the excess food that would otherwise go to waste to people's houses? Get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on, I think really think kind of farmers markets are fundamentally intertwined with protecting the environment because of just really significantly local food, cutting down the food miles. They say 85% of farmers market vendors come within 50 miles of the market. So if you compare that to the average 1,500 kind of food miles that your traditional food comes from, that's a huge kind of decrease. Farmers markets also eliminate a lot of the packaging involved. There's kind of not packaging requirements, so it's great to think that a tomato can get picked from a field, put in a reusable crate, kind of come to the market, and you bringing your reusable bag can get it all the way onto your plate and into your stomach without any extra packaging, which when you're going through all those trucks that Andrew kind of talked about and through different centers, it's so much more waste involved. So those are really just kind of great fundamental things that the farmers market offers, as well as when you have kind of a farming family that lives on the farm and is raising their kids there, they're just naturally going to take care of the soil and the surroundings and their environment better than kind of a corporation that is growing on thousands and thousands of acres. So all those things really, I think, kind of contribute to the environment. One specific thing at our markets that we're doing is give a bag, take a bag kind of boxes at the market. So, I mean, all of us probably have 20 reusable bags in the trunk of our car that kind of sit there. So, you know, taking those out and just throwing them into our bin so that the people that forget them, which also we all do, forget to take them out of our trunk when we kind of go there. So, you know, that's kind of just to help kind of eliminate some of the plastic bagging that's involved. But, and then going to your follow-up question, I mean, there is still so much food waste kind of in the system. Thinking back to when I was a farmer, you know, it's just appalling to think of how many kind of perfectly good tomatoes just got thrown away because we had no ability to kind of get them anywhere, either pick them from the field because we would just have lost significant money on the cost of labor, or to logistically get them to the right person. So the uprising of kind of these organizations that are kind of bridging that gap is very important because so much food goes to waste that shouldn't.
Great. Well, I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to open it up to questions now because you might have some questions, and I want to make sure everybody's questions gets answered before I go on to any other questions. Does anybody in the audience have a question? Yes, in the pink.
Yeah, I mean, if I'll just take a stab at that. It doesn't make a difference. I'm not on anymore.
Is she on?
I think you can hear me. Can you hear me anyway? Okay. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference about the bathroom being right there, unless the bathroom is seeping into that area. Like that would matter for anyone. And the main thing for you would be to test the soil, to see what nutrients are in the soil. Is it contaminated? You know, that would be your first step. And then you go from there. Does the soil need to be amended? Maybe you don't use that soil. Maybe you have a raised bed. Maybe you have some other, you know, method for growing there. But you're only going to know that by testing the soil, and it's not going to make inherently a difference where around your house that you plant.
Yeah, how could you-
Nursery, like a
nursery, any
or
nursery,
local
Home
nursery?
Depot, I mean, big box stores that sell plants and soil have those online, anywhere. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you just wouldn't grow in that soil.
So she can take a bag of her soil to Home Depot and they would test it for her? Is that what you're saying?
Oh.
I don't know if Home Depot does, but maybe your local nursery might.
That's a great answer. And yes,
Hi, I'm Chantal.
Hi.
I was wondering, do you guys work with Kiss the Ground? I didn't hear. Do you know
Kiss
about
the ground.
do you know about Kiss the Ground? Anybody
No.
here?
Well, I was thinking that's also another place because they all talk about soil, education on soil, how to treat it as
Awesome.
a living organism, biodiversity, regenerative agriculture. I was thinking that was also another place that they would help test soil.
Great.
Have a learning garden event where it's organic for community.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Kiss the Ground is great. Not only is it a great movement and a great organization, there's a book that just came out about it, and a movie is going to be coming out soon that we hope to be working on called Kiss the Ground. And it's all about the soil. The soil is one of the, farming, I don't remember the quote, but it's like 10% of the greenhouse gases come from farming, and that's not counting cows right now.
Exactly.
So there's not counting the methane from the cows. So soil, soil, soil. Everything, the big buzzword now is regenerative farming. It's not just about organic and making sure, it's about that you regenerate the soil, that you put nutrients back in the soil. Maybe everybody could talk about what they're doing in terms of soil regeneration, and not everybody, but anybody who wants to chime in here.
Well, it's kind of ironic for me as a hydroponic grower to talk about this because hydroponics is usually soilless growing. Typically, hydroponics will use a grow medium for the plant to take root in. That could be like peat moss or coco coir or some other materials. But we actually grow on hemp, which is a compostable material. Obviously, it's bioavailable. So what we do is we grow on the hemp, and then we encourage our clients to compost that on site, and many of them do. And then that's turned back to the soil. So, because when we grow, the plants we grow, you only eat the top, you don't eat the root, and so it was very important for us to grow on a compostable substrate.
Can people come to see your operation and work? Is there a place that people can find see what you do?
Yeah, so we're right now in 3 restaurants or 4 restaurants in Los Angeles. We're at Pru and Proper in downtown LA. We're at Scratch Bar and Kitchen in Encino. We're at Hugo's in West Hollywood. We're going to be installing at Hugo's in Studio City.
Wow, my favorite restaurants.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah, they're really terrific.
These chefs, you got to get these chefs to do some promos on it because Pru and Proper, he's a great chef.
Yeah, Chef Sammy Mansour. Yeah,
And he's in that whole network of Chefs Collaborative, so he's a real great chef. Say
Yeah.
hello for me.
It's really fun what he does with the produce. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Pru and Proper, it's a Southern cuisine type of restaurant, like Cajun kind of Creole food. And so when we met Chef Sammy, he really wanted to assimilate us into the brand of his restaurant. So we said, "What do you want us to grow?" And he said, "The Holy Trinity." And I wasn't familiar with this, but apparently with Southern cuisine, the Holy Trinity is celery, onions, and sweet peppers. So we said, okay, we can grow over 100 different varieties, and we started growing those for him, and it became part of his brand. And it's a really fun thing to do. Other chefs maybe want us to grow different colors. At Hugo's West Hollywood, we're growing some beautiful pink amaranth because they thought that their demographic would appreciate a nice, beautiful pink plant. So just depends on what the restaurant wants, and we're certainly always looking for new dining services, new restaurants, anywhere really where food is served. Could be a school, a corporate campus, a stadium, a country club, a hospital, a spa, where I know part of today's discussion is about wellness, and definitely for wellness, we want to deliver that as well. I mean, with microgreens, I talked a little bit earlier about the secondary metabolites and the nutritional context, but microgreens are actually up to 40 times as nutritious as the full life cycle vegetables they become. And one of the most nutritious is actually broccoli microgreens, which contain enormously high content of a compound called sulforaphane, which is known to significantly reduce the incidence of breast cancer. And so definitely would love to be in spas and other wellness organizations, really anywhere where food is served, where people want, healthy bodies. And it's also going to give you healthier skin, nails, hair, all of that. So you're going to shine inside and out.
Anybody else have a question? I have a question did somebody have one? Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'm Lindsay. I'm a chef up in San Francisco, and I talk a lot to my audience about buying local, going to farmers market, all that, organic. And I'm wondering, what you guys would suggest questions are for when you go to the farmers market, besides asking the farmer, is it organic, what's seasonal, to really drill into, what they're doing and making sure that that's the best choice for you and for the environment. I think farmers markets are starting to get a little more mainstream, and you're not always sure that it's not a big box like Safeway. Sometimes it's even there with their produce selling it as though they're a local farmer. So want to help people make the best decisions, and just wondering if you guys have some more creative questions that we can be asking more farmers besides is it local?
I would just chime into, those are great questions to begin asking, and then I would think kind of just try to take it to the next level. You ask, is it organic, or are you kind of spraying anything? And if they say no, well, what kind of pests do you have kind of at the farm? What are your problem kind of pests or insects or kind of things? And then they should have an answer to that. And then if so, well, how are you dealing with that? And then, so if they're not able to kind of keep that conversation going and providing you the answers that you want to hear, then maybe you move on to the next stall.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree. I think the pest management question is a really important one, and one that can probably get you a more detailed answer than are you spraying or are you organic. From CLA's perspective, we try to have our farmers markets be as affordable and accessible to everyone. So we get a lot of questions around, like, will you point out who the organic farmers are? Like the Santa Monica Farmers Market puts a flag, or do you prioritize organic farmers in the vendors that you bring on? And our answer is always no. Like we want you to engage the farmer and have that conversation and find your way into that conversation in a way that's possible. And there's also a lot of barriers to getting these, third-party certifications that organic requires. There's a lot of disgruntledness in the farming community around the organic certification and how watered down it's become. So I think definitely like taking that extra 15 to 20 minutes to be able to have conversations with your farmers and food makers as you shop the market is really important. Or sometimes if you're shy like me, just standing back and listening to the conversations that people who are more familiar with the farmers or have a strong relationship established, see what kind of conversations they're having. There was something else, and I lost it.
Maybe ask where their farm is.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about how the more local the farm is, the better. So I would just ask them where it is. And to the point about gripes about organic, I mean, hydroponic produce cannot be certified organic because it doesn't interact with the soil. That's just how that certification works. So for me, it's about being, chemical free and local. Those are the two things that I look for in my own personal diet. But yeah, so I would ask where the farm is, how far it's traveled.
Yeah, and I would add Safeway should not be at the farmers market. So you want to also look for a certified farmers market, which means that all the farmers in that market have been certified by their county agricultural commissioner's office that they're growing what they're selling and selling what they're growing. And their farms are inspected at least annually, and the markets are inspected quarterly by the agricultural commissioner's office to make sure that their list of what they are growing on their farm corresponds to what's on the table at the market. And they also look for signs of
If you see bananas or pineapples, you'd be a little suspect.
Right.
But not always.
Some bananas.
I'm going to ask a last question because we're at Digital Hollywood. This was a question that both Melissa and Sabrina wanted me to ask, and I think it's really important. So what digital platforms would be helpful in engaging the farm? How can people know more about how should we spread the word on social? What do you suggest?
I would just love it if the digital community could communicate to the public how best ways to live a sustainable life. What can we really do day to day? Not the stuff we already know, but some new things and some new ideas. So really engage us, and we'll participate and get some fun shows on. Show us some people that are visionaries that are doing that around the world or locally. And we can see that other people are doing it. We can see what their challenges were, right. And we could perhaps help. We can, help us create a network so that we can help solve this issue. Because I think we all want to do as much as we possibly can.
Absolutely. And just piggybacking on that, I have an almost 16-year-old, and I know that one of the ways that she's incredibly engaged is through her device. And so if you are able to make something connected to someone that's using their device a lot, whether that means you're creating a community around that, something they can compare to their friends, something that's also educational, something that gets them to care about the issue because it's related to their lives. I think that's one of the first steps. But even for people that are older than 16, having access to communities, people that are like you, being able to easily tap into that and see what's happening, not just in your neighborhood, your region, your state, your country, but the world. Something that facilitates that I think is the key to getting people not just more engaged, but actually working towards a solution together.
I know CLA has a great digital outreach. Can you talk? I get your newsletter, and
Oh, sweet. I'm so glad. Yeah, we have a monthly newsletter, which I think there's an internal debate on how effective newsletters are right now. But really glad they're making their way to you. We do a lot of Instagram is sort of our primary social media tool, and I also feel like in terms of the farmer transparency conversation, following the farmers and the food makers that are at your local farmers market on Instagram, looking for original content and not content that's coming direct from the farm, not stock images, things like that will sort of help verify what's going on their farm and give you a firsthand look at what's going on there. So I think that's really important or a good tool when we're talking about farmer transparency and growing practices.
Yeah, Andrew, I didn't mean to speak. I bet you're super tapped into the social.
So we met Pru and Proper Chef Sammy Mansour actually through Instagram influencer. So we reached out to this Instagram influencer and said, "Here's what we're doing," and they're called the Dining Dolls, and they liked what we were doing, and so they started introducing us to some chefs. And so Instagram really does work. It's amazing.
The Dining Dolls.
The Dining Dolls, yeah. These girls are amazing. They have like over 50,000 followers. They live a extremely enchanting life where they go around and they eat the best food with the best chefs and take photos with it. And surprisingly, they add a lot of value to us because now we have this conduit, and when they make an Instagram post about us, it's like amazing. It's like all of a sudden the whole world cares about food, and that's something really special. And so I really appreciate that they've given us some of their platform to advocate for our brand, and we're definitely humble and appreciate any other advocacy or chance in the limelight that we can get.
And Farmer Mark, you get the last word on digital.
Don't be afraid to put it down and walk around the farmer's market in the sunshine and talk to people that also have their phones down.
Great. Well, I thank you, everybody. I'm not going to show the trailer for Fantastic Fungi, but I totally would love for you to check it out, www.fantasticfungi.com. It's an amazing movie. It's a lot of healing in the soil through the mushroom mycelium network, and Michael Pollan's in the movie. It's really, really going city by city, and it's going to be available for you to screen in your own community, too. So check it out. Thanks to a great panel. And thank you, everybody, for coming.